I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Never fear change. Life is too short for fear. Chase what is desired.
I can do this all day.
Would you mind identifying what you are?
We're the best friends squad.
That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team.
Welcome to the rodeo. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
This is the way.
I have spoken.
Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show. On today's episode, we finally bring to you 2 recordings from our time in Dublin at Worldcon last year. Please keep in mind that these were live recordings, so the audio quality is not up to our usual standards. In the first segment, you will hear Sean Duke talking to Ariella Hausman and Terry Ash from Geek Calligraphy. In the second segment, both Sean and I talk to Tanya DePass of I Need Diverse Games. Better late than never, I hope. We apologize to all of our interviewees for taking so long to get this out there, but hopefully you will enjoy the interviews nonetheless, just like we did. Till next time.
Welcome to Signal Boost. I'm Sean, and I am here with 2 very special guests, Ariella and Terry. Would you both tell us who you are?
Hi, I'm Terry Ash. I am the artist, wrangler, and manager of Geek Calligraphy. We are a Finnish art business.
Hi, I'm Ariella Hausman. I am the artist who gets wrangled at Geek Calligraphy. Terry and I co-founded this business together because we had both had experience before in art, specifically in Judaica calligraphy. She comes from the retail end, and I come from the creation end, and we both knew that this sort of thing works better with 2 people rather than one artist trying to wear all the hats and do all the things. So it makes for a much calmer and easier experience when you don't have to be in all places at once.
Yes, no one gets to be Batman. Ever. Not while I'm around.
So obviously we're here to talk about Geek Calligraphy. You are, I guess you're like nominated finalist for some sort of award. I don't know.
Tiny award that no one's ever heard of?
We're talking about the Hugo Award for Best Fan Artist.
Correct. Yep.
In the year 2019.
Yep. Congratulations to both of you for the nomination.
Thank you.
At the point of recording, we haven't found out who's won anything yet. So, but it's fine because if you don't win, you still win because you get to go to the Hugo Loser party, which is also cool.
Yeah.
So.
And frankly, it would be an honor to lose to any of the nominees in this category because they're all pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So.
It's a pretty good year.
This is actually a really interesting year. Little inside baseball. This is, I think, the first year we are getting real 3D art, specifically jewelry, on the ballot.
No, I believe Spring Schoenhuth does jewelry, and she's been nominated before.
Okay.
Times. No. So,
But there's 2 of them, which I think is different. There's 2 3D artists, which is a little different, and that's kind of cool. Yeah. And we're happy to be with all these people.
Yeah.
So let's actually dive into talking about Geek Calligraphy because by the name, I think it's pretty obvious what you do. You'd
think that would be obvious, but not always.
It's not. People are like, so how is calligraphy geeky? And I'm like, well, calligraphy on its own is a somewhat geeky pastime in that it involves you shutting yourself up by yourself and writing words. But I'm actually a case study in why composition and penmanship were usually taught separately. Because it's actually quite difficult to pay attention to both your penmanship and your and what you're writing. Which is to say that you can write neatly while you're thinking about what you're writing, but when you're doing calligraphy, you're not just thinking about writing neatly. You're also thinking about how the words are working in the space and how you're laying out the entire page, and doing that while also composing something original is not something that I can do. I'm sure there are some brilliant polymathic people out there who can do it. And I'm sure if we meet them, we will love-hate them.
We love-hate a lot of people.
But that's not something that I do. So, we do calligraphy that has geeky content, and we also do calligraphy with geeky art.
That's awesome.
Yeah, basically, the fact that calligraphy is in the name indicates that there is always going to be text.
Right.
In everything we do. If you, that's our brand, I guess, if you'd like.
Our unique value proposition,
yes.
To put it in business terms. That, that's what sets us apart from all the other artists out there in fandom is that...
there's always words.
Yep.
Yeah. So one question I had is, calligraphy is complicated, or it takes practice. It's beautiful. But you all have been doing this work for quite a while, both training and studying, and then obviously doing it professionally. So what continues to interest you about calligraphy?
Well, so for me, it's not the calligraphy. For me, what keeps this business going for me, besides the fact that I get to work with my best friend every day, and you don't get to say that very often, is the properties that we've been so lucky to work with. We have a piece from Mary Robinette Cole's Lady Astronaut series.
Oh, cool.
We have a piece from Lois McMaster Bujold's Penrick series, and we also have, with permission from Neil Stephenson himself, an Anathem piece. And we're also getting to talk to some artists. I can't name names right now because negotiations are a thing. But I get to say to Ariella, I say, I want to work with this person. I want to make this book happen in a visual way, and we get to do that, and that's where it is for me.
Okay. What about you?
So for me, it is more about the calligraphy. I'd be doing calligraphy even if I weren't working with Terry, but working with Terry makes it so much better. And she is very much part of why I wound up going down this route with my calligraphy.
Okay.
But for me, it's a somewhat meditative process. I like making sure that each line is just so. And it's I shut out the world and just pay attention to, placing. You have to simultaneously think about each individual pen stroke and how it's going to fit in with the whole. And that headspace is something that I really enjoy.
Wow, okay. So I wanted to... You've mentioned this already in sort of your response to the previous question, Ariella, but I noticed in your bio that you had trained to become a Jewish scribe of holy texts, which blew me away because I didn't even know that was a thing anymore.
Very much.
But apparently very much, so much so that you trained in it. And so I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about it because I'm really curious about that journey.
I came to that, I guess I would say, but backwards.
Okay.
Because I've been a calligrapher professionally since the age of 17, and I started learning it when I was 10. And a friend of mine, as with many religious professions in the Western world, scribing was only originally open to men.
Okay.
And a friend and colleague of mine who's also a calligrapher is the first woman who is documented to have scribed an entire Torah scroll. She's always very meticulous to note that there were probably other women who have done this but who didn't get credit because of aforementioned
biases.
Yes.
Institutional sexism.
It's a thing.
Yep.
And she has been looking to recruit more women to the profession, and she knew that I already had the technical skills, so I just needed to learn the Jewish law around writing holy texts, which there's a whole slew of laws around how that has to be done.
Wow.
that I would need to acquire, and I told her for many years, no, that's your thing. I don't need to learn to do that. And eventually after 6 years of asking, she got me to say yes, and I apprenticed with her. I have not at this time written a Torah scroll because that's usually the first thing that people ask me. So have you written a Torah scroll yet? And the answer is no, because writing a Torah scroll, if you work on it full time, will take at least a year.
Wow.
And I have a full-time job because I live in a barbarous country where one is dependent on one's employer for health insurance, and I would like to keep that. So no, I have not written a Torah scroll yet because I want to have health insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, complications.
Oh, capitalism.
But it's still really cool that you've trained to do this pretty remarkable thing.
And I've written smaller things. So there are scrolls that go inside little cases that we put on the doorposts of our residences.
You may have heard of them. They're called it's called a mezuzah, which is the Hebrew word that technically refers to the scroll that goes inside the pretty case. The pretty case is just a nice add-on, and it makes it look like you didn't just tape a piece of parchment to your door.
Yeah.
So on a related note, Terry, one of the questions I had for you, because you do a lot of like the business side of things, and I was curious about, for you, what are some of the challenges of actually running an art-oriented business?
What are the challenges?
Let you count the ways.
I wish you could see her face right now.
Let me count all of the ways. The first one is everyone in my life who wants to know when I'm going to get a real job. I have a real job. It's awesome. I'm incorporated in everything. But we're a very niche market. We have a very niche customer base. And the business side, it's as challenging as anything else, really. Got to manage outlay, got to manage expenses.
Your artist a little bit.
Got to manage my artist a lot. I am blessed with a best friend who takes on a lot, and often my job is to say no. No,
it's true.
I often have to go, nope, you can't do another thing. There isn't any room in the calendar. No. No, you have to sleep. You have to eat. You have a husband that would like to see you sometimes.
Your hand will fall off if you keep going.
Yes, all of those things. And I will say, especially this year, which I've been living 8 hours time zoned off from Ariella for the first time in a long time. We're not even in the same country anymore, and it's actually been quite a difficult year. We've weathered it well, I like to think. And working with your best friend is challenging in a lot of ways because you like the person a lot, and sometimes you have to tell them things they don't want to hear from both sides.
Yeah, and also sometimes, we had to learn how, once we had this time difference, we had to learn how to section off best friend time from business time, because business time was suddenly taking over everything, and we realized that we hadn't had, just a conversation as opposed to a business meeting in like 4 months.
Yeah, it was Slack, I have to say. The fact that we do all of our business discussions in Slack, it's a Slack with 2 people in it, but we do all of our business discussion there, has really changed how we work.
So on that subject of working together, because before we had started recording, we had talked about, right, that you were sort of, Ariella, like the artiste, as it were, and Terry, you are sort of part of that process because you, while you don't do the art directly, you are part of the creative
I will
brainwork.
say that there are plenty of our pieces did in fact come straight out of my brain. They had to go through Ariella's hands first because my hands are good at making many things, and art is just not one of them.
So what is that process of kind of working together? I mean, you'd mentioned you do a Slack channel, and you obviously talk.
So sometimes it'll be like, I just finished a book, and I go, Ariella, we've got to work with this author. We've got to. Or Ariella... Or sometimes Ariella will already have a design. Like, we have a very popular print. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Yeah, you go for it.
The print is called Fuck You, Pay Me. Because
it's also a sticker.
Why is it a sticker? Because I like stickers. And I was like, oh, wait. We could put that on a sticker, and people could put it on their laptops and their notebooks and all kinds of... And by far and away, people love the concept of stickers. But Ariella doesn't do stickers, so she wouldn't have thought of it. Yeah. So sometimes I can take work we already have and make it more accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah. More points of view are helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Okay, so I want to take a different angle, which is for both of you about really the silly question of, did you imagine that you would ever be in a calligraphy business? I feel like with Ariella, maybe that was because you said you've been a professional since you were 17.
Yeah.
But, maybe thinking back earlier, was that like your dream job, being a calligrapher?
Not being a calligrapher. I've wanted to be an artist basically since I knew what jobs were. I also wanted to be an Olympic figure skater and a gymnast, and all those things that kids want to do. And literally from age 10, I already had classmates telling me art doesn't put food on the table.
Yeah.
And bless my parents, they never said that to me. And even when money was tight, they made sure that they got me art supplies. When I was a kid, my mother would buy these giant sets of markers, and then she would hoard them, and, anytime she wanted to give me a treat, she'd give me a new marker. She got me professional grade watercolor pencils for a birthday one year, because she walked into an art store and said, I'm looking for watercolors for an artist, and my father said she's 10, and my mother said she is a 10-year-old artist. So I've really had a lot of backing from everybody around me in becoming an artist, and I originally thought that I would not go into art because I worried that pressure to make art would take away the joy. But that's part of the point where working with Terry really helps, because she can help me manage the demands so that I have enough on my plate that I can rotate through things, but also that I don't have so much on my plate that it becomes a pressure cooker, where it's about producing as opposed to arting, as it were.
So the easiest way to describe what I do is I stand in the way of all of the things that keep Ariella from being able to do art. I handle irritating client inquiries,
and nice ones.
And nice ones. Look at our product schedule, handle pretty much all the social media. The irritating things that Ariella doesn't like to do and shouldn't have to, because, like I said earlier, no one has to be Batman.
Right.
You are not alone.
But so how did you get... What made you want to be in a calligraphy business, out of curiosity?
6 years of working in a Judaica store. That is the God's honest truth.
Yeah, we should explain that when I started out as a professional calligrapher, I was doing Jewish marriage contracts, ketubot, which is, it's traditional at this point to have them, very pretty and hang them on your wall. So I apprenticed with someone who was already doing that, who had a business partner, who did all of the things that Terry does. And it just happened to turn out that Terry wound up working in a Judaica store and wound up working with the same team.
I developed, part of what I did, I worked there for 6 years, is I developed a lot of relationships with the various artists that would send us samples, and then customers would come in and say, I want this one, and I would explain how the personalization process works and all that. And I learned what artists need from the customer, and I learned how, frankly, to chase down clergy. There is some, on our website, there is a cartoon that Ariella drew for me of Elmer Fudd wearing a very big kippah on the phone saying, be very, very quiet, we're hunting rabbis.
Because frequently, with couples who aren't so involved with Judaism day to day, and even for couples who aren't, getting married isn't something most people do on the regular. So they'll need their rabbi to sign off on
the information
that we're putting on the document before we should put it in ink.
Right.
And so chasing those rabbis down is not always easy.
And so at a certain point, Ariella and I have been friends now for, I think, 12, maybe longer, at least 12 years. Oh, certainly over a decade. And Ariella kept...
I think it's 15, babe.
Oh, God. 15 years. And Ariella had been doing all of our friends' ketubot for whenever we, one of us would get married. And at one point, she'd taken a custom commission and I can't remember why, but something was going very haywire, and I said, you need somebody to talk to them. It's time, you need an Aaron, who is the business manager of the artist that Ariella apprenticed with. And I remember that was about the time that Ariella was starting to think about putting the business together, and she said, I want you to manage.
Yeah. And at that point, we already knew that it was going to be geeky, because again, with the market saturation, there are so many people doing ketubot, doing Jewish marriage documents. But then in the space of a year and a half, I got 2 inquiries about a Star Wars ketubah, one for Star Trek, one for zombies, and one for steampunk. That was actually Terry and her husband. And I went, I think there might be a niche market here that is being underserved.
Yes.
And that was really when we just kind of fell into it. And originally the other art was just kind of a side gig. And then that took off and we went, there's a whole business here. It's not quite as niche as we thought. There's more to it.
And it turns out that there are, upwards of 100 science fiction conventions a year in which people buy that art. And we started showing at art shows, and we pretty much haven't stopped since.
Yeah.
Well, so you brought it up, and I have to ask now, because Terry clearly is a steampunk nerd. The internet says so, and you have brought it up that one of the steampunky introductions was working with a marriage document for Terry. And so now I have to ask, how did steampunk get injected into what you do? And do you see that there's a particularly fun connection between calligraphy and steampunk?
Steampunk is a great art aesthetic. You can do a lot with it because it's imaginary. You can incorporate a lot, and I think to some extent we've largely moved away from classic British steampunk because of the severe imperialist overtones that it has.
Yes, I once heard someone describe steampunk, not the aesthetic, but the concept as, but what if colonialism and fossil fuels and capitalism weren't evil? And I went, yeah.
No. But gears are fun.
Yeah, gears are fun. I like the color palette.
Yeah, I mean, there is some truth in that steampunk is what happens when goths discover brown.
I do love Victorian clothing. Yes, it comes on the back of a lot of really horrible social stuff, but
sure.
It's really pretty, and unfortunately, it's almost impossible in this world to, consume or partake of anything that is entirely free of any sort of problematic tinge.
Yes.
But
I mean,
we try to do it mindfully.
Yes, and I kind of pulled Ariella deep into convention fandom, right at the heart of when steampunk was very big, certainly in the costuming scene. And that's where a lot of it came from. And look, when someone tells you that your ketubah looked like Phil and Kaya Folio drew it, you don't shy away from that particular look.
That was one of the biggest compliments I'd ever received.
That's fantastic. So on the subject of kind of as a last question before we do the where can folks find you, what would you say is one of your, I'm not going to ask you to pick like the single favorite, but one of your favorite projects that you've worked on that you can talk about? Obviously, you have some secret ones upcoming.
It's the Lady Astronaut.
So no. Wonder Woman.
Okay.
So I would say that probably for me, especially after having seen Wonder Woman and watching Gal Gadot do Wonder Woman with an Israeli accent, which for me, I never get to see myself like that. Jewish women are not heroes, not in our media right now.
That's interesting.
And I got to watch a Jewish woman kick everyone's ass. And that was huge for me. So our Wonder Woman project, which is, we took some texts from, some words from Proverbs, which describe an ideal woman, and we picked and chose the ones we like best, and we put them into the Wonder Woman logo. in an old fashioned in a calligram, and that's honestly one of my favorite pieces we've ever done. And I think I'll let Ariella talk about Lady Astronaut.
Yeah, Lady Astronaut is definitely my favorite. Oddly enough, I actually came up with the Wonder Woman piece, even though it's Terry's fandom, not mine. But Terry is also my test audience.
Okay.
So, and she went, "Oh yes, you have to do that." But for Lady Astronaut, that one was Terry's idea, and it's my favorite. It kind of blew open a lot of mental doors for me because she said, you have to do something with Lady Astronaut. And I said, no, I'm a calligrapher. There are no illuminated manuscripts in, the 1950s. Nobody's doing that. I can't do anything. And
I said, I don't care.
She said, no, you have to do something with it. So I kept noodling around with it, and I went, oh, maybe I could do an Art Nouveau piece because those frequently do have text in them. And I kept kind of poking around at the idea, and then all of a sudden, an idea arrived and said, you must do this, and you must do this now, which was inconvenient timing because we were about to go into the Jewish High Holy Days.
Okay.
So I didn't really have any time to dedicate to that, but I did it anyway because it was just crying out to be done. And also, Mary Robinette was running a fan art contest for the Lady Astronaut.
Of course.
Right then. So it was a bunch of concatenating circumstances that, just demanded that it happen. And I think, honestly, it might be the best piece I've ever done to date.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
Well, fantastic. So, obviously, the big question is, where can folks find you collectively as Geek Calligraphy, and if you have individual ways
collectively also. We are G as in George, E as in Eric, E as in Eric, K as in Kite, C as in Charlie, thank you. I'm not going to spell this anymore. geekcalligraphy.com.
Links in the show notes.
Links in the show notes. That is where you buy our art. I am on Twitter as @crewgirl, link in the show notes. I swear, Ariella is on Twitter as...
I have the Geek Calligraphy handle.
Okay.
So most of the tweets where someone's just being conversational as opposed to making product announcements are me.
Okay.
But we're also Geek Calligraphy on Facebook. On Tumblr.
Yes. We have no one who follows us on Tumblr, but that's okay.
Well, it's okay. Tumblr won't be around much longer. It just got sold for $1 million or something.
That was
sad.
Made a fail. And I'm attempting to get into Instagram, but no promises there. Taking photos is not something I remember to do frequently. Even just process shots of what I'm doing. I just get into it and forget, but I'm trying to be better on Instagram. So if you follow us on Instagram, maybe you can motivate me.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for talking with me about your work and being dorks.
Thank you for offering to...
We love being dorks, and we love being dorks with other dorks. So
yes!
Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for listening, and you can find more at skiffyandfanty.com. Go to the show notes, find links to all of their lovely stuff, and then go buy some art.
Please buy art.
Buy some art. Yeah, you need it for your wall. So, on that note, goodbye. Welcome to Signal Boost. I'm Sean.
I'm Jen.
And we are here today with Tanya DePass. Yep. Welcome.
Hello.
Again. You've actually been here before.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start us off by actually talking about some of what you've been working on recently. You were just technically up for some award or something.
Yeah, that Hugo thing.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's important.
Totally overrated.
It's a big metal thing that would be hard to get home if I wanted it.
Right. Not worth the hassle of winning.
Yeah, at least not in a foreign country.
No,
then you
right?
gotta get it home.
Yeah, exactly.
Customs, all that.
Oh, and TSA apparently is notorious for hating Hugo Awards.
Yeah.
Because they look like weapons.
I mean, if you pick one up, it is pretty heavy.
It is pretty much a weapon.
Yeah, you could brain someone.
Yeah.
But so you were nominated as special editions editor, right, of Fireside?
Yes, a Black Spectic report.
So why don't you tell us about that and, how it came to be this year.
Let's see.
Well, rather last year. Oh my
Yeah.
god. How is time? What does it do?
At times.
It's relative.
It is. I want to say Pablo reached out, and Elsa also reached out and asked me. Actually, no, Elsa, she necessarily reached out and said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to edit this. Would you be interested? You know, do you have time to do it?" I was like, "Totally would do it," because I'd read this Black Spec Fic report before and knew it was important. And so someone on the Fireside staff handled getting all the data, like how many people had gotten fic out and things like that. Like
that was Cecily King,
yes.
right?
Cecily
yeah,
King,
Cecily.
So Cecily did all of the
but...
data side of it,
right.
the stats, and then we solicited people to submit stories, and I would edit them. We reached out to quite a few people. There were one or few folks who were like, too busy, that we would have loved to have. But everyone was great. Most of the stories didn't need too much editing. It was finding the balance between what they were saying and making sure we didn't lose their voice, but so it was clear. As any editor knows, there's always that, this has to be a little bit clearer, but we don't want to lose the author's voice. So.
Sure. So for folks that may not be familiar with the SpecFic report, can you give us a little bit of an overview? Like, what exactly is it?
Oh, let's see. I have to dig in the old memory crate. So it's basically a report and accounting of how many Black authors, I believe, were published and or won awards in the previous year. So the 2018 report actually is 2017's data. And so next year's report will have this year's data, 2018's data. And I know it's a good way to kind of go back to the publishing industry and go, hey, all these amazing people exist. Why are they not getting published? Why are they not getting deals? But also, so if you've missed out on any great works that past year, you can go, oh, here's all these folks that should be reading.
So I guess because this report's been running for a few years now, and it was pretty shocking when it first came out, because I think people had the impression like everything's getting better, and then we kind of realized like, well, there's still actually a lot of ground to kind of make up. Given that you've been working on the report and obviously you're working on the one this year, do you have a sense that things are improving, or is it sort of stagnant?
It's improving, but incrementally. Not as high as I'm sure a lot of people would hope, because like how the needle moves very slowly on a lot of diversity and inclusion, or even just kind of, there are people that are getting their work out there, but it's not moving as fast as a lot of people would love it to. I mean, this year's Hugo slate was a lot better in terms of inclusion, in terms of women, people of color, openly queer folks, but it still could be better.
Right. Absolutely. So in the meantime, you are still working on I Need Diverse Games.
Yep. That nonprofit life.
That nonprofit life. Oh, so lucrative.
I know, right?
So how is that going? And are there any new initiatives that you've been working on recently that you would like to share?
It's going. All of our funding is still Patreon, so please give us money.
Absolutely, definitely.
But we're trying to still get people to go to the Game Developer Conference. We have to turn in data to GDC. They've changed their process a bit, where they want to see like your stats on like who's applying, who you award to, are you getting mostly people of color, women, queer folks, and how are you awarding it? So hopefully we get to do that again for 2020. We're going to be at PAX West in the Diversity Lounge, and hoping to do PAX Unplugged. In terms of initiatives, what we'd love to do is be a resource for people who want like diversity consulting, sensitivity readers on the game side, both tabletop, RPG, board games. And I want to revive Fresh Out of Tokens, or at least kind of have some kind of podcast talking about it, more Twitch content as well, because we have a Twitch channel. But the initiative right now is kind of keep existing, but also I want to get more people involved, because right now it's me and a couple of very core dedicated folks that are keeping it afloat, and I want to get to a place where it's like it's sustainable and I don't have to do the rattle the cup every month to keep the bills paid. The main initiatives now are gearing up for GC 2020 if we get in the scholarship program again, PAX West, and 2020 con season.
So one of the things that's happening as a discussion in relation to the Hugos in the WISPAS meetings is the new interactive media awards that people are discussing. So how do you see sort of your role in I Need Diverse Games and promoting that side of things in the gaming community. How are you seeing that moving forward, relating even more potentially to what we're here for, which is the literary science fiction and fantasy side of things?
I think it'd be interesting because I think a lot of the games that would wind up getting the attention of a Yugo voter may be more what some people unkindly call walking simulators. More literary, more verbose kind of games.
Right.
More RPGs, more narrative-driven games. And what's the merit on which they judge it? Is it the quality of the writing? Is it the quality of the game? Is it an overall interactive piece? Because games are a medium, and then there's so many genres of them. So do you discount anything like Call of Duty or a shooting game?
Right.
Do you only count something that's interactive fiction?
Right.
Do you discount games that are from the big publishers? But as we saw last night, being a big entity doesn't preclude you from winning the Yugo because Into the Spider-Verse won.
Right.
Yeah. So, what's the criteria? Who's going to select that? How do you then get it out? Because we see the video game awards every year, and it's basically a popularity contest because you can vote multiple times.
Yeah.
And how do you get people who are into games to buy into the Yugo culture, spend the money on a membership so they can vote, even if they can't attend? And how do we? And is this going to revive the old argument of art games art?
Right.
So one of the things that makes me think a lot about is, because you're talking about the problem of how categories are sometimes decided, and certainly some Hugo categories are very much about what was the popular thing, especially media-oriented categories. And given that games, right, in the industry more proper, right, it tends to focus a bit more on the popular games. The concern is, right, would the indie creators necessarily get the attention of the big creators, quote unquote, like BioWares and those kinds of companies?
I think this would be a place where the indies could really shine, especially depending on how the rules are set up.
Yeah.
If they go, okay, well, big AAAs are excluded by nature of you have money and years and a giant staff, and then how do you send 200 Euro awards to BioWare if one game wins? Something like that. So I think this is a place where indies can really shine, especially depending on how those rules are set up. And then, do you credit just the writer? Do you credit everyone who worked on a game? Because even an indie game can have 10, 20, 50 people on it.
Right.
So how does that filter down? Do you just give the studio head or the creative director the award, and they may or may not have done the coding or the writing or the art?
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's really going to come down to who's allowed to nominate, how those votes are cast, and at the end of the day, who is credited? Like, who are the people that would get that Hugo nomination, and who's going to stand there? Like Rami Ishmael's group, Vlambeer. They're a small group, so like if Vlambeer got nominated, then all of them will probably come because it's a smaller group. But what about like someone that's bigger than what we consider indie, but not a AAA? How does that work?
And I imagine with something like any kind of interactive media, especially like video games where there are tons of coders and artists and stuff, right? There is a point at which like there are just too many names.
Right. It's like, so does creative director get the credit for everyone who wrote and did art or did the writing? Does the art director count for everyone who did any kind of art on the game?
Right.
And then how do you deal with that? Like for those who may not be aware, there's Diana Jones Award. And so last year, actual play streams won, and so literally it was passed around to everyone who didn't actually play. So you can't really do that with the Yugo Award though. Yeah. So does it sit in the shelf in the studio that wins? Cool, we got this rocket. It's gonna sit in the shelf.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It seems like it could potentially be unfair. It also makes me think a lot about, like, I get that, our dramatic presentation categories have always kind of not listed everybody. Yeah. And part of that is, like, you be there for, like, 3 hours listing off all the names of people who did Avengers Endgame. But at the same time, it's like, even, like, the Oscars have, like, started moving their tech awards off the Oscars proper for, and I'm doing scare quotes, time-saving measures. They could just cut all of the terrible comedy acts. But the really unfortunate thing is there are all these people who, like, these movies don't exist without all of these CG people, et cetera, et cetera. And it just seems unfair to them that they just sort of get punted to the side. I get it, for some degree we have to limit, but
you can't send out 2,000
Yeah.
2,000 Hugos because they'd have to raise the price.
At least give them pins. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like,
kidding.
or send them ribbons, or at least, like, I mean, like a cute little pin that looks like that year's Hugo, but it's like, but then if you order that many, then the secrecy of the vote, how does that work?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It is definitely something that I think the Hugos are going to have to come to terms with in terms of what they're now awarding things for. And that's true just in the fan cast category, for instance.
Absolutely.
That's true definitely in the fanzine category.
Absolutely.
Where there are more than just, obviously, 2 people, like with us. There are more than us as producers of the show creating the show and making the show what it is.
It's not like it's not like podcasts are still like one person in a room or in a closet with foam padding.
I mean, I'm sure there are a couple that are like that, but
it's not the same days where
exactly
where no one knew what a podcast was.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no, for sure. So moving.
No, I actually wanted to ask one question because you brought up like criteria a lot, and I kind of wanted to get your take on, because like the related work category is sometimes treated as it's the catch-all for things that don't fit anywhere else, right? And for a while, podcasts showed up in that, and then they were like, oh, we can't have that. Or was it they've showed up in fan? I can't remember. It showed up somewhere, and then they made a category for us because, of course. But with something like interactive media, that can include quite a lot of different types of material. And so I guess the question is, are you concerned at all that it would become nobody knows exactly how to nominate for that category because it includes every type of thing, or would you hope that they maybe narrow how they define it in some way?
I think they would have to narrow it or do interactive media interactive media video game interactive media board / tabletop. Either delineate it or be very, this is what interactive media means.
And it has to fulfill, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because if not, you wind up having people nominate every little thing. And just because you're nominated doesn't mean you get on the final ballot.
Right.
But you're going to have to wade through 2 votes for someone's 20-minute IF game they made for a jam, which your friend thinks is great, but may or may not be Hugo. And but then we can get in the weeds of what is Hugo actually worth at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
$13. Yeah. Get it on eBay right now. You can get a Hugo for $13.
Really?
I'm making that up, but let's just assume it's true.
Okay. I was like, really?
I imagine they're worth slightly more than that. Well,
materials.
Yeah, exactly.
You can melt it down.
For sure.
Wow.
I'm teasing y'all. Come on.
So I am curious, though, given that we might soon have an interactive game category for, let's say, just the past year, 2018, even into 2019, what would you say are some of the best interactive media that you've seen? That again are obviously diverse, which give me one video game, one tabletop, and one other.
Oh, tough. So lots of I'm thinking of wouldn't fit for 2018 because it's either older or isn't out yet. I would say Assassin's Creed Origins because they actually cast a black actor and the voice. For the most part, the voice actors match the ethnicity, and they went out of their way to do that. Same with Assassin's Creed Odyssey,
right?
Where they actually got Greek voice actors to voice the 2 protagonists. Tabletop, that's hard because tabletop's really fucked up.
It is.
It is, and
so go indie.
Okay, well, actually, let's say Blue Rose because they did a new edition, they did a new version in 2018. A lot of stuff that was not great, they fixed. Trans representation, they fixed. And actually had someone go, hey, we fucked this up in the first version. Can you please write this and make it better? Indie, it's tough. I don't have a lot of free time to play a lot of games.
Oh, I know.
I stream, but it's sometimes the indies where it's do I want to play it? Do I not want to play it? But I would actually say Church in the Darkness would be another, if I could sneak in a more current game. It's just out now, but I'd say whenever this category happens, Church in the Darkness can be good too.
What's Church in the Darkness?
It's new. It's set in 1977. You're trying to get your nephew back from a cult that has moved to South America because so it's a wee bit topical, even though it's set in 1977. You know, even though you're a little sprite, you can still like actually be. You can pick not great gender, but like you can actually be darker than a brown bag.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty
cool.
It's just
out, yeah.
Is it a video game or
a video game?
Video
so
game.
It's
Okay.
Console and PC.
Oh, I'll have to check this out then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I guess maybe we should end on you just telling us a little bit about I Need Diverse Games, and I mean, are you keeping do you have a lot of resources for folks to find things that like the kinds of games we're talking about?
A bit, and actually, I want to plug Diverse Gaming Lists on Tumblr.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
They categorize stuff. They do trigger warnings, so like people can write in and go, "Well, I've got a phobia," or a certain thing will trigger me. Are there games that you can you provide a list of things I should avoid? Right.
Okay.
And there's everything from like female protagonists, non-binary, neurodivergent, and the person who runs it is doing it, I think, all on their own. They've got a Patreon, so it's diversegaminglist.tumblr.com. And then as for me, most of my money and time is spent on Patreon. I stream, but it's not the source of my income. I hope I never, and I know I'll get yelled at this, but I don't think I could ever get to a point where I could pay for my bills off Twitch. And I don't know that I'd want to. Right.
It's a scary world.
It is, but I did the math, and I need about 1,000 to 1,200 subs consistently to pay my bills just from Twitch. Yeah, and granted, yes, that's $5,000 a month, but you got to hold out money for taxes. I have to pay my rents, travel, and people are like, that much money, and I'm like, a fifth of that is gone just paying my rent before I see a penny.
Right.
And it's like people need to eat. They have to pay bills. You have to pay all the things that people like on streams cost money. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that people don't think about freelancing in general, which is when you start making so-called money. I said scare quotes again. A lot of that you don't actually get to keep. It's not like a job.
It just goes right back out.
It's a business.
Right, because it's a
like
business.
Any other.
Right.
And I think people assume that if you're a freelancer, there are no business costs somehow. I don't know why there's that assumption, but there absolutely is.
I think for freelancing, and this is getting a little off topic, but it's something that I think people understand, because all this is appeal of I'm my own boss.
Right.
And that's not true, because when you're freelancing, you're still beholden to the person you've got that part-time gig or that one-time contract with, and if you don't make them happy, they don't pay you.
Right.
Or it's like you may get a sweet deal, but they need you to drop everything and do it right now. You're like, oh, all this money, but what if they have exacting demands? What if they need something and you're about to go do a con or something like that?
And that's particularly true when you're running a nonprofit.
Or doing writing gigs.
Or doing writing gigs or anything like that. Because I come from the nonprofit sector myself, and you are beholden to every one of those grants that you get in a very specific way.
Right. It's just like also how you spend your money, what you can do with it, what you can't do with it. And people are like, oh, well, you could just buy games. It's a business expense. I'm like, I can, but if for me to say it's a business expense, quote unquote, I then have to make sure someone at I Need Diverse Games gets to play it. They have to write it up. Or we have to stream it. And even if I do this for myself and try to deduct it later, I still have to go, oh, I bought like the newest Call of Duty, so I could review and play it, and if I don't do that and I just buy it, that's not really a business expense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like if I buy a gaming chair, yes, it's a business expense because I have to sit my ass in it all day. Or like my laptop died. And granted, someone's very kind and got me one, but if I'd had to go out and buy one, that's like $1,200 you weren't expecting to spend.
Yeah.
And people don't think about taxes. They literally don't.
I mean, the taxes are a huge part for freelancers, especially because...
especially more recently.
Yeah. Well, because they added a lot
me
in.
and an extension are best friends.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this a lot because, we're doing BookTube right now, and just the number of subscribers and regular viewers you'd even need to be able to like retire from your other careers you might have is a ridiculous amount. Because we couldn't just be like, oh, we got like 500,000 subscribers and like we get 200,000 views all the time. We'd be like, well, but after we do the math on that, like I probably still got, I couldn't quit my job for that.
$10.
What?
It's a bit more with 500,000 subscribers, but
sure, it's probably more.
But also, how is subscriber used? Because
Yeah.
on YouTube, it literally means someone clicked the button.
Yeah.
But on Twitch, that should mean money.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think anyone on Twitch has that many subscribers. I'll say, but even there's some streamers that keep 1,000, maybe 2,000 subs. But all of that has to go in production value. We don't think about the time.
Yeah.
And it's like streaming equipment ain't cheap. So, like, I want to do better with lighting, for instance, because I stream from my living room. I don't have a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
And so, if I want the nice fancy key lights, that's $400.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, no one... And I had a conversation about this, I think, on the streaming panel I did here, is that people want the faux celebrity, they want the clicks and likes and the views, but there's that dark side to it, and the work. And
I was just thinking that too. Or the other side of that, which is, depending on what you're doing as a streamer, you could get sort of sucked into a cycle of constantly having to outdo yourself.
Yep. Or if you build your career on one game, then if you get bored and you try to leave that game, there goes everybody.
Yeah. Or you do like the PewDiePie route where it's like he had a very specific shtick he did and then he started crossing lines.
But people still love it, and he's got such a young audience that
he does. He's managed to survive it, which
is terrible. Anyway, we're rambling now.
We're rambling about streaming. So thank you so much, Tanya, for coming on again with us, because it was a delight to talk to you and also to meet you, because I've never met you before.
Exactly.
So.
Nor have I, obviously.
Yes,
and
we're all in.
You were one of our earlier Signal Boost
interviews.
So thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
Yeah, and let folks know where they can find you so we can make sure to plug you away.
All right, so you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, most places as Cypher of Tyr. That's CYPHEROFTYR. That includes Patreon, coffee as well, because all of my money comes from Patreon and coffee most of these days. And then I Need Diverse Games is so our site is ineeddiversegames.org. Our Patreon and Twitter is ineeddivgms, because it's too long for those platforms. And our Twitch is just twitch.tv/INDG, and you can subscribe there too.
Well, perfect, folks. So go support all of that. Go check out all of Tanya's stuff. And I guess I have to say something awkward.
No, you don't.
I usually do.
That's Signal Boost. That happens.
It happened. It's happening right now.
Yeah, it's happening right now. Shut up.
I love you, Jen.
I really don't love you.
An awkward ending and scene.
Wow.
If you would like to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/SkiffyandFanty. You can also find us on our website, skiffyandfanty.com, and on Twitter at @SkiffyandFanty. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. The music for this episode comes from Sphere by Creo. You can find out more about their music at freemusicarchive.org.